Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. While mining companies Kumba and Exxaro have boasted successful employee share ownership plans over the last few years, Vedanta's Black Mountain Mining has established a 7-year plan for its employees. Martin Creamer tells us more. Welcome, Martin.
Hi, Sashnee.
Tell us about the employee share ownership plan that Black Mountain Mining has set up.
These are called Esops, and they involve workers in the company as shareholders, which is an interesting, adaptation by unions. Unions have now decided that this can be a way to go. There was initial resistance to it early on, but we see that some of these Esops have worked brilliantly. Now, Vedanta has come in with the latest Esop. We see it against the background of a zinc price, which is really looking very promising. Even though the zinc price might not rise to huge heights anymore, a lot of people feel it won't fall either. So that's the sort of background that you need when you go into these share ownership schemes by workers, because you don't want them to be disappointed, which can happen. I mean, we have had a lot of ESOPs which have not been successful, but we've also had some hugely successful ESOPs.
In 2010, Kumba's payout turned more than 6,000 below management workers into pre-tax half-millionaires.
And this is what I'm talking about. It can, if it hits a rich vein at the right time in the cycle, you find that workers can walk away with huge smiles on their faces. And in this case, as you're saying, they were half-millionaires. It was pre-tax, of course, but you could see that so many of them had plans for this money. Some went into farming, a lot of them bought property, a lot of them had houses in mind with this, and you could see that there was a lot of preparation as to what they were going to do with this money. And that's another thing. When the payout comes, it's also good for these companies to have a long sessions with the people involved, so that they use the money well. And I think one could say that is what happened at Kumba. But look how things have changed. The ESOP that followed the one at Kumba is unlikely to be as successful, because I think workers have got to realize that mining is very cyclical, and if you do get it at the right moment, you can score big. But you must also anticipate that you might have to hold on to those shares for some time until the business is correct. Now, so in South Africa's context, involving the workers in this way, I think has more meaning than in many other countries. Mining has been associated with being harsh on workers, and there's now a time to change that. And one of the ways to do it is through these employee share ownership plans. It's interesting now that Vedanta is coming in. We see their name mentioned now as a possible candidate to be rather big in the world. I know that they are not directly investing in Anglo-American, but their chairperson has his own interests, and his company has invested heavily in Anglo-American to a point of 11% or more, which shows that this group is thinking big. They've done quite well in South Africa by taking over Anglo's zinc assets in the Northern Cape. They're looking to develop Gamsberg, and they're doing it against the background of very promising prospects. Now, that mine has been 40 years in the waiting. I mean, Anglo-American and Goldfields really didn't succeed in turning it to account, whereas we see that Vedanta is doing this, and it's significant that this is an Anglo-American asset. They acquired this from Anglo-American, and they're showing that they can do things with it. They're also indicating across a broad front that they really want to do things properly in the Northern Cape. They want the backing of the communities, and they want the backing of the workers. And this ESOP is another indication of their determination to do things correctly.
Can you tell us about Exxaro's 2011 payouts?
Yeah, you see, so if you look at Kumba and Exxaro, they both came out of the old ISCO. ISCO was a state-owned enterprise that made steel. But in order to make the steel, it needed iron ore, and it needed coal, coking coal, and needed various ingredients. So in those days it would go out and buy these mines and operate these mines. But with the South Africa moving towards democracy, thinking changed, and they split ISCOR into two parts and said, look, the mining part, let's take away from it, and the steel part became a non-state-owned entity, which we have today with ArcelorMittal South Africa. But on the mining side, they got hold of those assets, and they've done very well with them. The way they've unbundled has unlocked a lot of value, and some of the value coming out of there is also shared by Exxaro, which went heavily into coal, and they, being associated with Kumba and being a big shareholder in Sashnee and getting massive dividend flow from Kumba, also decided to do something similar with their workers, and they were also able to make sure that that payout in 2011 was meaningful. And so we've had two very successful ESOPs. Hopefully now with Vedanta it will also prove so, and with the cycles changing, these other ESOPs will come into their own again. But we know we've had quite a tough time in mining. We can see glimpses of emerging from that, and I'm sure this will also help unions to get the idea that things aren't always rosy. There's always a time to make demands, and there's always a time to make sure you pull your horns in a bit. But if they know they're going to be compensated in this way, perhaps it'll be good overall for South Africa that you'll have this awareness like they do in many parts of Europe, particularly Germany. Those unions are quite astute. They know when to push their demands and when not. And if they cut into the deals like this, overall, they will be beneficiaries of our resources, which are seen as a national patrimony from which all people, all stakeholders must benefit. And of course, South Africa as a whole benefits not only from the tax that these companies pay, but also importantly from the foreign direct investment that they attract. And you can see there's always a big foreign direct investment aspect to mining, because you need a lot of capital, and also it benefits the country because the goods are exported and you're earning that foreign exchange. So all round, the resources industry is a very important one, and if you can get your workers with you on this, it's going to be very good for the South African economy going forward.
Thanks for speaking with us, Martin.
It's a great pleasure, Sashnee.
That's it for today. Join us again next week for more news analysis on South Africa's mining industry.